Welcome, community. You are listening to the RAMA Blueprints Que Madre podcast. Under the avocado tree, La Matriarca is Salvando Community Roots Garden. We are live in Oxnard, Califas. Before we get started, I first want to acknowledge that we are gathered on unceded Chumash land. We are at Community Roots Garden. We recognize the value of the Chumash people who have been the original stewards of this region for thousands of years. And we celebrate their unbroken legacy and ancestral knowledge and their relationship to Utas, our Mother Earth, La Pachamama, Nuestra Madre Tierra. Today we're stepping into the garden, and not just as a place to grow food, but as a sanctuary for healing, transformation, and reclaimed agency. We're exploring what it means to reconnect with the land through indigenous traditions and the powerful pulse of radical mothering. Join us as we dive into the heart of matriarchy, where leadership is defined by service and the collective always comes before the self. This is the episode Under the Avocado Tree, La Matriarquía y el Jardín Comunitario Community Roots Garden. This episode is a joint collaboration with Que Madre podcast, and the conversation is especially timely because we're going to reflect on the outcomes of the stakeholder meeting that happened on February 28th. And this gathering was a pivotal moment for the Community Roots Garden, where community members, activists, and land stewards came together to navigate a season of transition. Co-hosting with me today is Ana Rosa Rios Centino, host and co-producer of Que Madre podcast. Welcome, Ana.
Thank you so much, Socorro. We know that collaboration fuels our survival. It is rooted in matriarchal wisdom. Our strength is found in how we care for one another. By joining forces, we amplify the voices of those shaped by this soil. We honor a lineage of stewardship that goes far beyond ownership. The meeting served as a living example of the leadership we discussed today, one rooted in transparency and communal accountability rather than top-down ownership. We begin by witnessing the first-hand impact of this sanctuary. Joining us today are guests whose lives have been forged by profound personal journeys through the fire of activism, the heartbeat of la cultura, reclaiming land, the strength of birthwork, motherhood, and the sacred path of ancestral healing. For them, this is more than just a garden. It is a lifeline for restoration and a vital sanctuary for our matriarchal and cultural survival. So let's introduce our guests. Comadres, fierce warriors, and land stewards. Fatima Chavez Lopez, she, her, is a first-generation Chicana from Oxnard, California. Fatima attended California State University, Long Beach, and graduated in 2016 with a BA in sociology. Starting in 2014, Fatima began learning and practicing traditional Mexican medicine and developed an interest in reproductive health. Then in 2019, she completed her doula training with birth workers of color based in Long Beach, began practicing sobadas, which is traditional body work, and completed the lactation educator and counselor certification program from UC San Diego. Fatima believes we know our body best and that when guided by intuition, informed decisions, and consent, we are able to make the best decisions about our body and health. She approaches care through a trauma-informed lens and brings individualized care. Now I'll hand it over to Socorro to introduce Angela.
Wow, thank you. Welcome, Fatima. Good to see you. I have the humble honor and privilege to introduce Angela Flores. Angela, I'd like to welcome you to the show.
Thank
Angela is a community activist, artist. She's a third-generation Chicana utilizing art as a tool for transformative social change to empower her community. She co-founded and co-facilitates the autonomous space, the East Side Cafe in El Sereno. For the last 25 years, she supported managing free programming, events, workshops, classrooms, and general meetings. She's also an active participant of the Mexican folk music Son Jarocho, a music that originates from the southern Veracruz, Mexico, performing for community events, protests, as well as collaborating with Entre Mujeres, Alice Bags, cool, and Los Lobos. She graduated USC Arts and Leadership Master's and Certificate Program under the Thornton School of Music. She currently is co-op developer with Mercado del Pueblo Cooperative and currently volunteer caretaker of the land at Community Roots Garden and is part of creating a community land trust in Oxnard with the Chumash Bear Circle. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Welcome.
it.
Thank you for being with us. Well, we're humbled and honored to have you both join us for important and sacred conversation. So, to begin this conversation, we have asked you both to present the audience with your thoughts, perspectives, with this opening question. As we gather in this sacred space of the garden, can you share how your personal journey has shaped your understanding of rematriation, not just as a return of the land, but as a practice of healing and radical mothering and communal accountability?
Yeah. Thank you for that. Well, I'm definitely honored to be here in this beautiful garden. I have deep love, appreciation, and I guess so suddenly with, of course, like the state of the world just globally and the the very seriousness of the fascist regime that we're all under, that I become like this environmentalist. And I am so empowered and inspired by indigenous women. And I, as a third generation Chicana, I am very aware of my culture, but because we've been like here in the States, we've assimilated. I don't have those like indigenous qualities, so I can never claim indigeneity. So I'm learning, though. I'm learning to kind of return to my heritage and my indigenous culture is. And so while I'm doing that, I'm also remembering when I was a young girl, my father, before I was born, he was very active. A lot of political activism with his family here in Oxnard. He was born and raised here. And was always just looking for, his calling. And I guess he was a part of a political league, like a communist league in the 80s,
Okay.
which after a while he didn't vibe with. I guess it had been, too nationalist after a while, or anti-black, sexist, and just something that he really just didn't align with. So at the time, in maybe the early 90s, he was assistant director at the Chicano Studies Department. And he saw on TV, he usually tells a story where he like has his hands crossed and he saw, the Mayan indigenous people in Chiapas, Mexico rise up to their government. And he actually goes to self-help graphics, and he goes to Sister Karen to see if he could get support, like financial support from her. And she gathers like some posters for him to like sell. So he fundraises really quickly to get a flight over there, and he finds his calling with, indigenous communities. And then he comes back, applies for a fellowship, flies out there. He got accepted to a fellowship to live out there for over a year. And he lives out there as a human observer, and he works very closely with indigenous women and children. So when he comes back, it was something very, intimate for me, because it was not having my dad around, and having to deal with nuances and the pressures in high school, and having to deal with that here in the States. And so when he came back, it was like, oh yes, like I have my dad. And even when he left, it was very stressful and scary, because it was like going into battle. It was very dangerous. So it was always scary for us if he was okay or not. So when he came back, a lot of people wanted to talk to him about what he had learned, and that was probably like the first time I learned a lot about rematriation and women taking a stance, not just against their government, but understanding the patriarchy within their own families and within their own communities, and having to like really put it down and be grounded and commit to what the communal agreement was going to be by creating the Zapatista women indigenous revolutionary laws. And so that was so powerful for me as a young girl who felt so insecure. I'm sure like a lot of young girls here, I was very reserved and felt like I was in an art school, so I was in the theater department. at that time it was like 97 up to 99, like in Hollywood, it was like Latinas didn't have any roles,
Right.
especially like Chicanas, like no representation. Still, like I want to like maybe a few Chicanas, but there is like, at the time it was like you're a whore, you're a prostitute, you're a maid, you're the chola. And being 17, I did not identify with any of those things. So I think that when I first saw the Mayan women, Tzotzil, the Holoval, indigenous women, when they talked about their rights to participate
Right.
in the revolutionary struggle, because they themselves have that intersection that they're dealing with. The right to education, because there is hardly any education. But I mean, I'm sure that it's like definitely changed. I went my first and last time there was 2013. It was for their escuelita program, and it was like amazing. But I would say like the rematriation and just like the healing practices, to come back to your question, that has definitely shaped who I am today. And just going back also to the environmentalism and how they've taken care of their lands, and how it's something that is just incredible to be able to see how much they've taken back. And there's no like plan to develop, like any type of like
Right.
buildings or anything like that. It's just, let's preserve what we have, the hillsides, the selvas, the plants that we have here. It is vast, like with greenery. And it is like it's a dream, for
Right.
any environmentalist activists. I think that a lot of our communities need that healing.
Right.
And the healing would be reconnecting with the earth and addressing the climate devastation that's happening right now. Here is like a beautiful prime example of that, being led by Suli Jimenez and Adriana Diego, and what they've cultivated is like gonna help generations. So I give them thanks. And how the rematriation here specifically is femme, young women led, and mother led, and indigenous led. So I see a lot of that happening here. I'm so happy to be a witness to that.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's a enlightening experience, and I think it's for me. And when I listen to your answer, I think about a lot of full circle moments and seeing what people have put forward, and understanding that here at the Garden, the Zapatista values are being upheld at this point. Fatima, let's hear from you and your perspective.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here with all of you talking and sharing these topics. And I think the discussion is very needed and timely. I feel like it has been timely from like the beginning, honestly. So for me, being a first generation Chicana, my parents migrated here from Michoacan, Mexico. Different times, but really like stayed here a little bit before I was born. So being an only child, my parents were and continue to be my first teachers. And the way that they talked about this was just being respectful to the plants, like growing, being outside. The language wasn't really there besides like you take care of the plants and you're out there and you take care of yourself like you take care of the plants, right? So being that the first teachings for me it really shaped and to the core in my foundation, right? And not saying that I always stayed there because there's that rebellious part that I just wanted to like do everything that my parents were saying not to do, right? So, I strayed and I came back, right? But before I go any further on that point of like language and words, I wanted to mention like the traditional Mexican medicine aspect of this in reclaiming, with the land, and how this, I guess, title of practice isn't really like said like that. It's like curanderismo might be another way, or it might just be like, this is how we take care of each other. And I think that that's a big one that I come back to time and time with people that I see and I work with, that they're like, oh yeah, this reminds me of my abuelita or my mom or my tia or my neighbor or whoever it is, right? But they didn't have like the word or like the why, and the why is a really important reason of like why sometimes we stray away, because our moms might be like, just don't be barefoot, and you're like, why? And then they can't explain it, and I think that there's so much there why they can't explain it, right? Because this form of like traditional Mexican medicine has came from many different parts, right? It's a weaving of African traditions, of European traditions, of, yes, indigenous traditions. So in the sense of saying traditional Mexican medicine, it's not to replace indigenous knowledge. It's its own thing, right? It's a mix. And especially because we use plants like rue, rosemary, lavender that are not from Mexico, that are not from that area, right? So I just wanted to kind of bring that point in, and I promise I'll try to connect.
No.
And yeah, before I go any further, I think it's wise to mention my teachers here. So if I say anything wrong, ¿quién me puede jalar las orejas over here? As I mentioned, my mom, my dad, Metzli Lopez Torres, Tecolote, Elena Rios, Yolanda Porcayo, Lupita Lares, Judith Lara, Tema Mercado, Lucia Cherry, Paula Liper, and all the people that have crossed my path that allow me to witness their birth, their transformation, and their postpartum time. I'm constantly learning and evolving with them as well. So to me, a lot of this has been just connecting to ourselves. Returning to the land means to return to ourselves. And with that, I think we get to be mirrors with the earth, just to mirror this climate really, and what kind of is going internally, right? These battles, these external impositions in ourselves, right? Things that we're trying to breathe clean air, but a mile away there's like pesticides being sprayed, right? So that balance, right? And we're able to see how in our body we can find where we need balance, where we need harmony, and how we can, right, when we connect, when we feel the air going through our body, we're able to feel what we're feeling, even for a second, right? And to me, that is, I know we'll talk about this later, but to me, that's like going against a machine, right? That's, to me, the main one. Because when we connect with our elements, to me, especially in the work, is our own fire, our inner fire in our stomach, in our belly, that intuition, that gut sense, that has been very much like this connection that's been imposed. Like they purposefully have done this to disconnect us from ourselves, from the land. Because when we're disconnected, we are kind of lost or kind of like unsure, because we don't have the whys, we don't have the reasoning, right? Our moms are working 3 jobs a day and they're not around to like make us warm food or tea, right? So to me, returning to the land, of course, means land back, because it's time to return the land to those who cared for it with respect, with dignity, with so much humility, right? So a little bit of that, right? of having those elders, those teachers that come to us in a good way to share. And I think some of us might be like, oh, I'm not sure how to find that or where to go. And I think it starts with ourselves. I think a lot of the work that I started here was just going inwards and like, why am I scared of birth? Why this? Why that? Right? Finding the whys. And I found so many answers. And when I find the answers, there's more whys. So I love that for us. But yeah, that's a little bit on what I have to share.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as a co-founder of the Oxnard Birthworkers Collective, you are a guardian of that very first transition, the transition into life. As the co-founder of the Oxnard Birthworkers Collective, you are at the front lines of radical mothering. You often talk about reclaiming the birth room as a site of sovereignty. How does the work of protecting the sacredness of birth in Oxnard parallel the struggle to protect the sacredness of this land? And what ways does your birth work serve as a form of rematriation for families who are trying to heal from generational trauma?
Yeah, thank you. I know Suli was mentioned earlier, but I just want to bring her back on here because her and I go back to high school. And I think she mentioned this in the last time, and like how we were completely different. And again, love that for us. We explored, we changed, we continue, right? But this connection back really at the garden, really we connected back in like herbalism workshop things. But at the garden, I lived not too far from here a while ago while I was pregnant. So coming here and like talking with Suli as we were imagining and we're working in this form of like birth work that here in Ventura County is very white, very expensive, very like feels almost like exclusive sometimes, like if you know, you know. And we bring a if you know, different kind of vibe to that, right? So in our own way too. So with that being said, I think the radical change that Zuli and I have experienced on our own, like separately because we went to different schools and all of that, right? really brought us back here, so we're able to show up for people as they are themselves also transforming. And not that they're transforming in the same ways that we did, but in a way we all have those connections, right? Those common threads of reasonings why we're encountering one another, right? That mirroring best to ourselves, right? And I think being radical, it looks different for everyone, right? This is my own experience of how I'm radical. To me, it's like getting that confidence in my intuition. Because for a long time, I was like, as an only child, a girl, a woman, I didn't really know English till I was 8, but everyone thought I was white, and I'd start talking to me. I'd be like, I don't know what you're saying. So it was that confidence of like, I don't even know what I'm feeling, right? So that radical change for me was connection to the intuition. And I find that's a very common thread for birth givers, people that are giving birth, that trust of the unknown, that trust of like letting this urge, this animalistic urge come to us, right? And like letting it take over. And sometimes that sounds so easy, and I think they make it sound like, oh, you just trust and you let go. But that is so hard when all our lives we've been told what to do, what time to do it, how long to do it, like school schedule, right? Like health education, what did that even teach us, right? So to me, being a radical birth worker means knowing that at some point I don't want to be a doula. I don't think we should have doulas and birth workers. And Stevie Marino from Long Beach Birth Workers of Color talks about that, right? Because in imagining this world that we all know how we all come to this earth, that we all know how to take care of each other, that we all know how to bring nourishing foods, that we've connected with the earth, that we're able to harvest the sweet potatoes when it's time and bring them forth, right? Like all of these things. So it's a big layered thing, I think, experience, of how radical change looks for me, for many people. And I think a big part of it being radical is that it evolves and it changes. You don't just do it once and you're like, I did the radical thing. Like,
it's ongoing.
No, you keep going. You keep changing with what's going on, right? Back to that mirror of environment and climate and all of that. So that's a big part of it. And compassion. Compassion is a really big one, especially when talking about trauma and hurts as children, ancestral hurts that we don't even know. Like that compassion that I think sometimes is faced at the birth space, hospital, birth home, birth center, is really real, because we want to control things, because we have been taught that we are to control, so now we want to control to feel like we are in control, right? So letting go of that and meeting ourselves with compassion as we give birth helps, because as we parent, there's a lot of reparenting that happens, lots of hurts. So compassion happens. So yeah, thank you.
Can I just
go ahead. Jump
you
in.
some flowers and give the mothers here some flowers? And I had become a foster mom last June. And it's tough. It's like 2 little boys. That's tough. But I'm not like a biological mother. And I all my sisters have children, so I've helped raise a village. And I kind of like am that cool tia role. But at the same time now, as a foster mother, it's like I have these major responsibilities to be a guardian and to really, really make sure that these boys are protected and safe, and their creativity and their intuitive powers and their feelings. They have, we go to a therapist, and that every session the therapist wants to know how are they feeling. And even though I'm kind of like, like let's talk about other things too, she always comes back to that, and she, and the boys love it. So it's really great to instill those values, like for everyone, but especially the little boys.
Thank you for sharing that, Angela. I've had the honor and privilege to meet those 2 boys and be with them in this space. I think when you talk about the birth and the connection and mothering and the garden and the nutrition and the mirror. And I'm glad you mentioned Yolanda and Lupita, as I also really always want to honor them for their teachings with me and working in the work that we do. But just, thinking about those 2 boys and thinking about your son too, Rio, right? It's interesting that I meet more and more women, mothers raising boys, right? And I happen to be a tia of 18 nephews and nieces, and the majority of them are males. And it's a great thing. I love it because we have a lot of strong women in our family. And I appreciate you saying about the leadership at the garden, that it's femme and it's radical women, and it's a lot of women in the leadership. And as I'm sitting here in the garden, I'm looking at the three elders of the garden. Don Adiel, Robert is here, and Don Manuel is over there. And so there's that balance, See,
Right.
we still find that balance. And Darren, who's co-producing, he's sitting with us in the circle
The
today.
duality is needed.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Angela, both of you are doing the same work. I just want to acknowledge that in different gardens. All right? Angela in the soil, in the environment, and Fatima in the womb. Both are about creating safe and sacred spaces for life to thrive against all these odds. And we're not pulling out Bermuda grass or dealing with the powers that think that be at this garden. You're dealing with hospital administrative stuff, or maybe other things that prevent, from what you mentioned around letting go and not being in control. So, Angela, there recently was a stakeholder meetings that took place here,
Right.
and to discuss the transitions of the garden, or at the garden. And I wanted you, if you have a moment, to explain what, for those, especially for the listeners that weren't there,
Sure.
what was the heartbeat of that meeting, and how did the community stories help shape the vision of the garden's future, and what's happening now?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, maybe just to give a background on my work here, I came here in 2019. Me and my husband were just pretty much priced out, and we were like, where do we go? We couldn't say no to a really good deal from a family member. Like I said earlier, my father, he was born and raised here in Oxnard. There was a lot of political activism within my family. My grandparents were socialists, communists, and participated in different protests. And one in particular, like high school riot, I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but it involved my Uncle Angel.
Oxnard High School.
Was it Oxnard
Yeah.
High School? Okay. And that's when like a lot of the students, black and brown, rose up against a lot of like white teachers. And it was like just really powerful. Something that my dad, talks about a lot. But anyways, we came here, we moved here, and right away I had to look for a community space. I had to look for, that's just something that my heart, has to gravitate towards making sure that I have those connections with people who are like-minded in political, ongoing community work and gardening. And so I remembered Suli because she actually had gone to an encuentro in Chiapas, and they did a report back at the Eastside Cafe that I'm a part of. And so I ended up being the moderator. And I was like, very last minute, I was asking them questions, and so I remember them. And so I saw Suli at another garden, and I said, hey, you're that girl, and can I, come to this garden? And she said, yeah, definitely. So I started coming around. It's been 7 years. And just recently, the property owner is United Methodist Church. And I think it's been like, I don't know, like 6 to 8 months of them kind of like, I don't want to, maybe abandoning, like just hasn't been a lot of activity here. And the group itself has dissolved. So as they dissolved the district, or the United Methodist District, I still need to get on that language, but that they were gonna bring in another United Methodist church or group. And so I think that what we needed to do was that we care about this space too much to let that happen, because I think that there's been so much community activity without the church that we felt it would be necessary that we respond in a way that's respectful, but also letting people understand that we not only want to stay here and be at the garden, but we also want to take over the property, including the building. So not everyone understood that. And there was a lot of people, I'd say like maybe up to 100.
Yeah.
Up to 100 folks who came for that stakeholder meeting. The representatives from the church didn't expect that many people. They're expecting like 10 people. They were just going to present to us like, oh, these are our plans, And once they saw that the community came through, were you there for that?
No, he wasn't.
Once they saw that, they knew what to do. They had to do the right thing. They had to be responsible and take a step back and give the stage to everyone who needed to speak to save this garden. And people were thinking that they're going to just take it away. But, there's a process and making sure that people are, still have their roles in coordination of taking care of the garden. So there's a lot of people who explain that and explain the need for the garden and how it serves the community, the impacts to many different partners and groups who have come and participated here. But also I went ahead and I got up on the mic and I talked a little bit. What I pretty much did, as I had my two little nephews running around,
That was crazy.
I had to go because one of them was running around, but he was very sick, and I had to take him to the hospital right after. I had to quickly talk a little bit about my experience in creating and co-founding a land trust in El Sereno, and how we needed to have something in response to developers obtaining and acquiring land in LA and how they were displacing families, and a lot of the continuing the anti-gentrification work that we were doing at the space. And so we had successfully launched that. We had been around, it's been around since 2020. So I talked a little bit about there is a possibility. At this point, I wasn't talking to the representatives. My audience was the people. And I said, I feel like I'm preaching to the choir if I talk like why we need the garden. I think everyone understands why we need the garden. But what do we do from here on so that we can be stewards and co-owners, collective ownership of this land? We could go ahead and build a community land trust, and we could also look at cooperatives. Just so as long as we, are under capitalism, like there's a model that's very close to what the type of work that we're doing here. This is the model that exists right now that a lot of grassroots organizations are utilizing right now. So I spoke on that. Currently, we are a group of volunteers who are still meeting since February, and now working on like a plan, a timeline, and what does that look like? What does everyone's roles look like? We, just recently, yesterday, presented a proposal to the church and listed our partners, listed programs that exist. So we've been doing the work, we've been actively present here doing the labor, and hopefully they'll be looking at that, as well as working with Marianne from the Shumash Bear Circle and seeing about Shumash participation in the land trust.
Right. And so this group is made up of individuals that are volunteers here at the garden, as well as other partners. Can you mention some of the other partners that were at the meeting, possibly, that were there?
Yes. Radical Mothers, of course.
Yeah.
Mini Nature Reserve. Mini Nature Reserve is another nonprofit grassroots organization that does guerrilla gardening and has different types of seeds, and when we talk about climate change, we want to talk about soil health and seed saving, and they do a lot of that work. So they have a little plot in another part of the garden, as well as MICOP, and MICOP is very, very crucial and important to making sure that we strengthen and we have those ties to the extended community and indigenous people from Mexico as well, who are being impacted by ice raids, especially right now.
That's right.
And so, we're in a time and place where people are getting kidnapped, and MICOP serves the specifically the Oaxaqueño Mixtec indigenous community, and they have a lot of presence here, as Adriana does a lot of work with the food distribution, and they have that ongoing. And so I think that really, really speaks volumes, when we continue that partnership with MICOP and serving their needs in their communities.
Right.
That's all I could think of right now.
That's okay. Maybe we talk a little bit about how Radical Moms is connected, or the Oxnard Birth Workers, and having a space here, and what it would mean to, and I don't think we're gonna like just throw up the white. We're just gonna give up. I think we're gonna keep fighting, and I think that we've decided, we've like locked ourselves down and said we're gonna keep doing this, and whatever it's gonna take. But I as being a program that's here, or let's just say a group that meets here, what does that mean to having such a sacred space, to the mothers that are coming here, and what's the connection deeper than what I know you mentioned about mirrors and stuff, but maybe expand a little bit more on that.
For sure. Yeah, I think for the mothers that have came here and their mothers, because there's been a lot of generations that come here, like it's the kids, the moms, and then the grandparents, and sometimes even the great grandparents. So with that being said, it's like it's impactful in so many ways, where we see like elders coming through and they're like, oh, I recognize this plant and this is for that, and it becomes a way to share knowledge, like another way of learning and connecting, and back to like finding mentors, right? So there's also not a lot of green spaces, and I know Jenny Lynn mentioned that too, where we can come and we know that the grass isn't being sprayed with pesticides, and so if your baby puts it in their mouth, it's okay. It literally is just grass. It doesn't have all these other things in it. And there's so many other plants that are edible, right? And it starts to have that relationship of like, yeah, we're not separate from nature. It's not dirty. We're able to learn, and some of these like we already use in dry teas, and we just didn't even know what they look like, or that's what a banana tree looks like, and we don't even know what these plants look like. So it's back to the connections, right? So it offers a safe space to land, a safe space to come, and we've had workshops here before with the Oxnard Birth Workers Collective, the Circle for Radical Mothers come here, and they're on the grass and talking, and it's such a safe space that brings inner peace. And also with knowing all the medicinal plants here, right? If you need something, you can just come here, get to know the plant, get to ask the plant what you want and what you need, and then harvest, right? So that relationship continues. And back to like what this machine has created and wants us to keep doing is like not to be in this connection. So back to this radical space really of being, this radical space of like, yeah, there's plants that are in certain spaces, but they go where they want to be where they want to grow, right? So that is felt deeply here at the garden. And also being myself here, like I mentioned, living nearby, and as I was pregnant and gave birth to my son, I was so close to here. So walking around just felt really peaceful and familiar. That not a lot of places feel like that, where you can just not be on lookout. You don't have to be on watch out. So yeah.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the word dirty, and of course I picked up on that because I feel like that word is so politicized, because they call us dirty Mexicans. As women, they call us dirty, like, and when you come to this garden, it reminds us that in fact we are beautiful and we are part of nature, just like this beautiful garden. And I think, lately there's been a lot of talk about somatic this, somatic that, but I think a lot of times people don't actually know what they're talking about. And so would love for you to comment a little bit more on the somatic work that you do, like the sobadas, because we store a lot of the hurt in our womb space. And so I just know, like, it was very, like, life-changing for me when I went and I saw you for that. And I know that you've been helping so many different women with that and reconnecting with our womb. And just like it's important for us to reconnect with our womb, this is a form of reconnection being here in this garden. So just would love for you to share more about that.
Yeah. The word dirty. Saying that, I'm giggling because I'm like, I didn't even realize. But like also dirt is so important, right? It's earth. It's like, and it's this changing of the word, right? Like dirt and then earth, like. Right there, that's change right there. But it is so important. It's so important to have this rich soil and dirt that is being pulled away by all these things.
So you're saying we should be dirty.
We should be dirty. we should smell ourselves and stop using fragrances that are not right for us, that are disrupting our hormones.
I'm down.
I know my mom is looking down going, ay. Was obsessed with cleaning. Go ahead.
Yes. And it's
but it was a good thing.
Right, yeah.
My mom.
But it's so many things are rooted in patriarchal views of like what it means to be clean. I'm doing quotes here. And it's like a lot of like infantilization, like body parts, like, but we won't get into that. But back to the somatic.
I mean, there's connections there too, because we've been immersed in this climate of like the Epstein list and the fact that we just heard the, you know, the terrible news through the New York Times about Cesar Chavez, and then Dolores Huerta also letting us know about what happened to her. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like we need to remember that our kids are sacred, right? And instead of sacred, right now they're being abused.
Yeah, and it is such sacred work to be raising life. It's all the capitalism and all the isms that are hard, that are pushing us down as we're trying to, you know, move forward. But with that being connection of like all the hurt happening, right, and somatics, and how much work it really takes to hold in our hurt is like wild. Like how much we mask, how much we go on pretending and it's not there. Like that energy like could be shifted elsewhere, like could be shifted to let go, to move through it. And that somatic feeling, right, of like feeling safe. Like there's no way to release something if we're not feeling safe, and if we're overall just not feeling safe in this place, in this country, like how are we gonna even like be breathing? Like even guiding breath work is so challenging sometimes because everyone's like holding everything, and it's back to this like being nervous to show ourselves to each other, being nervous to show who we really are because all the judgment, and you know that goes on to like what we're supposed to do and all of that, right? But yeah, it's been really beautiful to see, and I see a lot of people that are trying to get pregnant, and to be honest, it helps me because oh man, this world can get really dark and heavy so quickly. But to know that there are people that want to bring light, that are ready for that, or you know, at least think they are, and you know, we all think we are, and then we're not, and then we're back at it.
But we're never ready. There's no way to ever be ready.
You just gotta jump in and do it. Yeah, so it's like these connections, right? Of like, how do we trust when we're not safe? But if we trust and we let go what's in our belly, we go back to our gut instinct instead of listening to what we're told, it changes, right? And back to like the fragrances and things that I want to mention, and the food that we eat, right? It's like we are constantly being fed and exposed to all of these things that are also furthering our connection, right? Dysregulating ourselves, dysregulating our hormones. So then when we're trying to connect with ourselves, we're kind of even a little bit out of whack. So getting into that alignment is hard, right? But there is so much energy we all have that we can transmute all of that. So yeah.
Well, thank you for that. You know, I just stop and reflect on my own journey coming here, but also prior to coming here as a cancer survivor. And I don't like to attach myself to the cancer word, you know, but I just know that when I began the journey of clean eating and changing my life, I didn't have a garden to do it at, but when I get here, I realized that how much there was here of natural medicina that I was longing for, and the ability to let go and not hold on, understanding about that inflammation and how it's caused, and cortisol, all those things that I started recognizing and acknowledging. I started realizing this place has become like my healing place, but not to take advantage of it, not to put into the soil all my negative stuff, what I was going through. And it's interesting because my nephews, so I've been here at the garden about 6 years now, and my nephews, because they're like the mirrors for me. They're young, I'm like, I just turned 70, and they'll tell me like, God, Dia, ever since you started going to the garden, like, you're just so different. And I was like, is that like a good thing? And they told me like, yeah, well, this is the other thing, and that my sister's is a whole nother story, I'll tell you, because they go, oh my God, your nails are always so dirty, and why are you always wearing like jeans and boots? Like, what happened? And that I'm cool with. I kind of come from that era anyway. I was always in overalls and braids when I was working on the mural in Chicano Park. But what I see is them reflecting those palabras to me, telling me, like, wow, you really changed. And I think, because I I'll mention Darren. Darren knew me when I was at the principal at the Ripe High School. And I was like, I was kind of hard to deal with. I didn't look the way I looked physically, the external part. I wasn't clean, I wasn't sober. But I felt I deserved to party hard because I was saving lives, right? I deserve it. But I was just slowly destroying myself and not taking care of myself. And it's the cancer that comes and appears. But it was a manifestation of a lot of different things that I have been going through, burying kids, working with violence in the street, my own self-destruction.
Yeah.
But I reflected on something that you both said about, the generational trauma, the things that we come out of that contribute to self-destructive behavior. And the garden for me is just like the opposite of it all, and it's opened up so much more for me. So I'm real connected to it, but very committed to saving or rematriating. I mean, I really want that. That's is something that it's a goal. And I've been in a lot of protests, a lot of, from the Baki, from the 187, Chicano Power, the Huelga, and Dolores, what happened with Dolores Huerta. Was sharing a little bit with Ana and other friends, opened up an opportunity for me to sort of let go of some stuff that I experienced. And I came here to the garden to cry that day, that next day. And that night, I had to speak at UCSD on the patriarchy of Chicano Park. And it was kind of so it's been a lot of, self-reflection and opening up for me also.
Well, we talked about this, and we mentioned that when Dolores admitted what had happened to her, it helped us both release like the shame of what had happened to us.
Right.
It was somatic, like a somatic shift. And so I just am really grateful to her for having the strength to do it. I think people question the time and whatever, and honestly, like, that's messed up. Like, nobody should ever question a survivor's time and when they're able to share what happened to them, and some never do. So I would just say thank you for her having the strength to share what happened, and the other women who were kids when this happened to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have to mention also the other women.
Ana Murguia and Debra Rojas.
I think all of us, Chicanas and Chicano spaces, like, we have to question that. We have to, and then we reflect on it too. And, just like the Zapatista women, like in these revolutionary spaces, we have to set these terms. And I almost feel like, and maybe what we can do here is like come up with our own revolutionary terms, like I think it's long overdue for to create something and to speak on it, like on accountability. There's a lot of that happen, maybe in the past decade or so. Like, there's been more and more of that, and I feel like it doesn't have to be bad, like there's definitely like mediation and restorative circles and these accountability circles that could be very positive. And that
people have to be ready to be accountable, because there's predators in this community that they try to pass it off like they're fine.
No, absolutely. No. I mean, when like the Zapatista women in their laws, they say rape and attempted rape is punishable. Like, you're banned. So that's something that we definitely need to also talk about. But then I'm also like, looking at like both sides to it. Like, I'm looking at accountability as like evolving for us, like an evolutionary process for us.
Yeah, and just bringing it back. I mean, I think all of this and that term accountable is really extremely important at all levels, even as we're faced here right now with the church and the North District, basically not taking responsibility, and how they basically have abandoned the situation, and so I know that the general meeting continues to happen on what day, Angela, and when is the
Every
group?
Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. And then we get together here Wednesdays from 2 to 4 and Saturdays from 9 to 2 to do garden work. But when we're here doing garden work, we're talking, like we're hanging out, we're reminding each other, we're holding ourselves accountable to like the tasks, responsibilities at hand. Right. So it's good. It's good. Yeah.
And the Circle for Radical Mothering, when do they meet here?
Tuesdays at 11, but more like 11:30. So we run on mom time.
Right. And so they put a schedule out. You're on Instagram.
Every month it changes. Sometimes they take a break. I think it's really fun how they go with what is needed at the time. So it's not like, again, back to the schedule, like it has to be every time. It's like
group is open to all moms, right? Everybody can come. Yeah. Yes. So all right, that's great.
Just that we're going to have a trade post coming up. So if anybody wants to participate in the trade post and have your little stand, it's all barter. None of it's monetary. So we're trying to be as anti-capitalist as we can.
Awesome.
As we prepare to step out of the sanctuary, because we're in the last few minutes of our lovely podcast session, let's make sure that we are able to be attuned with our daily movements and to look toward the horizon. We've talked about the struggle for the land, the sacredness of the birth room, and the accountability we have to one another. So for our final question to both of you.
So we always want to leave the community with a special thought from you. So
Yes.
when the children who are playing in this garden today, or the babies born into your care right now, look back at this moment 20 years from now, what do you want them to understand about the seeds we're planting today? And what is the one thing they should know about what it means to truly belong to the land and to each other?
So my values have many values, and one of them is like transparency, horizontality, compassion. I have my own dichos as well as like a dicho from the Zapatistas. Actions speak louder than words. So you may talk a good talk, but are you reflecting that in your daily actions and doing the things that you said you would do and deliver them? But a dicho from the Zapatistas that's personally my favorite is lento pero avanzamos, and that translates to slowly, but slowly we advance. And that under capitalism, like you were saying earlier, like everything is so controlled and with a time frame, and time is money, whatever. And so with this, it's more about taking care of ourselves and walking together, asking each other questions, and having grace for one another and understanding where we're coming from.
Thank you. Fatima.
Yeah, for me, what you were sharing earlier, Socorro, got me thinking about just being accountable with the reciprocity, with what we take, we must give too, with ourselves, with the land, with others. Like, we're responsible for our actions. But I think a lot of myself is rooted in this, like, imagination. Like, I love to imagine, and I love to think of things that are not how things are not, and not to be like, I love to daydream, but I love to daydream too. And I think that play and that fun is so important, and to put that, to like always encourage that for children, it starts to break the boundaries. Like, it just becomes fun. It becomes like every day. It doesn't become this huge task. It doesn't have to be that way. And that's one that I say a lot. It doesn't have to be this way. Like, things can change so much. And when we're looking at nature, right, in that mirror again, like, I feel like nature's having fun with it. Like, a plant grows this way, oh, it's okay, I'm just gonna grow crooked and go to the sun, and it's okay, and like, I'll drop my seeds there, and the next time it's gonna work out, and I'll grow there, right? So this fun, there is no mistakes. It's all like just right, the lessons happening. So I think as long as we stay that and rooted in what we believe and what we trust, which is like the elemental, like, connection with the earth, is like nothing is gonna sway us from that. Like, we can sway, but we're rooted, and we're not gonna be torn and taken. So that's for me. Yeah.
I just want to uplift that point about imagination, because I think that's the biggest thing that capitalism tries to take from us is imagination. And if we cannot imagine another world, we cannot create it.
Yeah.
So that imagination is huge for ourselves, for our kids, our babies. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
We want to thank our guests. We want to thank both you, Fatima, and Angela, for sharing your time and your space, your energía. But we also want to thank our first guests, right? We want to thank Zulema Ramirez and Janilyn Bailon for, planting the seed and getting this podcast going. Well, I want to thank you guys. I wish we could just keep talking all afternoon and hang out. But I thank you again. It's been a real honor, and thank you, Anna, for your inspiration to continue to do this. In the spirit of matriarchy, we want to keep each other safe, we keep each other fed, and we keep the land free. And until next time, we will continue to connect, stay rooted, and remember, to listen is to heal. This is a joint episode between Que Madre and RAMA Blueprints. We also want to thank Community Roots Garden, the Circle for Radical Moms, the Oxnard Birth Workers, the Que Madre podcast, and the California Arts Council for their support. Thank you, Darren, for engineering and being with us here today. And gracias, and take care. Peace and love. And remember, All power to the people.
And the gardeners who are out here doing the damn thing, taking care of the garden. You might have heard them in the background.
Yes.
Thank you to those gardeners. Anyway, peace and love and many blessings to you, and continue to have good energy.
Thank
Gracias.
you.
Thank you.